Listen up. We are back for another episode of the Construction Mentor Podcast. My name is Ike. I am your host. You can follow me on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and you can always catch this podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. What are we here to do? We're here to promote the construction industry, not only opportunities that you can chase for an affluent lifestyle, but if you're already in the industry, how do you take your career or your company to the next level? And today I have a new trade on here that I have not had before. Nice. I've never had a concrete guy on here before. That's what we're going to talk about. We have Robert Lujan from Lujan Elite Concrete out in California, where I used to close to where I used to live. So I'm pretty familiar with the area. And let me tell you how I found Robert. He had a post where he made the claim, and I'll keep it as a claim because there's a lot of people that would push back on it, but that concrete work was the most difficult work out there, basically because of the nuances and the timing of the install. And then I got lost in his content, and since then I've been following it. And what I love about Robert's content, again, Lujan Elite Concrete, what I love about it is that he's a funny fucking guy. and
okay, so that's nice.
yeah, you could cuss, yeah. And not only is it impactful content to see some quality stuff, to learn a little bit about a trade, that you can make money in and how to make money, because he shares, how to basically price jobs. But he's also a funny guy. He's the guy that you can relate to and get a little entertained by. And, I know that that's important. Robert, what are your thoughts on, why that's so important to show a little humor?
So hello to all of you guys listening, man. I just wanted to kind of drop a little bit of knowledge because I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs starting out, business owners, they want to hit the ground running, and they want to get, obviously, followers doesn't always equal money, as I've had haters point out before, that are just sitting around not doing shit, but they're watching me. But it never hurts to have more eyes on you and your company than not. If you're looking forward to becoming someone that grows your brand, because essentially your company is that's what it is. It's a brand. You're not just your company, and if you're just a company that just offers that service, nobody is connecting with who you are, what your morals and your principles are as a person, and also for your company. So that's where you can stand out. But you don't want to just be posting your work on social media. You want to be posting a couple stories a day, kind of with your day-to-day life. Try to be influential and helpful. I can't even really number the amount of people that have reached out to me like, hey man, you're really inspiring, and I love the stuff that you do. And I've had people offer to come and work for me for free because they want to just be around me and be around the stuff that we're doing. So you
could totally go in a million different directions with this. And what I love about, again, not only is it humor, not only is it good business content and good trade content, but he also shares some wellness content. And I've talked before about how important it is for the trades and people in construction to take care of themselves.
Right.
But there's two things that I want to highlight above all else, because I think we can naturally talk about that when we start going through the course of, what was Lujan Elite Concrete's life like before he was an elite concrete guy. Right. One thing is we need to advertise to the youth. We need to let them know what an awesome opportunity the industry is. And I think we have too many people out there, and I don't want people to think I'm dumping on Mike Rowe, but that's like your grandfather telling you to get into construction. You know what I mean? Like, we need more humor to appeal to the younger group. We need more of that viral content, which you're doing.
Right.
But what I love about Robert's content that not everybody does, Robert explains that, how do I put this? If you want the cheapest price, Robert's not your guy. You're going to pay an elite price. You're going to pay a premium for Robert. So Robert, why do you do that?
And a good thing too, just to backtrack a second, when you start to grow your brand and you start to get the numbers up a little bit, people want to show up on your page. Hey, this guy has 20,000. They want their house to show up on my Instagram so they can be like, hey, you see this guy who's always like talking a little bit of shit? Because you can be professional and you can be real, and it's very hard to be both. You're going to rub some people the wrong way, and at the end of the day, you're going to rub people the wrong way anyways. So you just got to kind of be true, to yourself. So yeah.
And you're probably attracting the right clients at that point.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. At the end of the day, also, like, my pride, like in my particular situation, I live in the Inland Empire. It's a very unique setup because, you know, there, and again, this is me just raw and uncut, is there's a lot of people that come over here from Mexico and they get straight into concrete and then they start doing side jobs on their own, and they're coming over here making pesos and they're making 80, $100 a day, and then they're advertising on Facebook Marketplace that they're doing concrete for $5-6 a square foot. And then so it just really depends like where you're advertising your services. So I've kind of had to learn that a little bit too. Like I have to go to kind of a little bit I don't want to say, I guess you could say wealthy, like a little wealthier areas where people they're not brand new homeowners. When you get a brand new homeowner, they haven't been burned yet. So they think, oh, concrete's concrete. Like they don't know that you need to have a certain amount of joints. They don't know about the prep. They're just like, this guy's giving me concrete for 5. This guy's giving me for 15. So of course they're trying to save money. And if you're in an area, like I said, with newer homeowners or people who don't have that much money, they don't really have an option to really pay for our services. But there's a lot more that goes into concrete than just putting two numbers together and saying, oh, I'm going to go with this guy because he's a little bit cheaper or more expensive.
So it's a good point. You know, a lot of young people, especially when they start a business, they get caught up in wanting to win every single job and do everybody's work, right? And it's like drinking out of a fire hose. But you want the right client, right? And the right client understands, like you said, somebody that's been around the block, what it's like to get burned, and that they get what they pay for, right? You know, you had a great post maybe a week or two ago where you explained how to make $1 million pouring concrete.
Hey, if you go get your concrete license real quick, you know, you charge $5 a square foot. And I made it seem like in the post that you get to keep all of this money and you're not paying for concrete and you're not.
Yeah, it was 100% of the revenue is profit. I do think that it was a good point though, right? Like you laid out a calculation that was $5 per square foot. If you pour so many square feet a day, every day for all 365 days, it's like 1.2 or 1.4 million.
Yeah, it's like 1.4 or something like that.
Which if you were to tell somebody that, you know, they wouldn't have to go to college and that they could, you know, learn this trade and get a license, you know, relatively quickly in the grand scheme of life, you could there's a very clear path to owning a business that generates, you know, almost $1.5 million a year in revenue before you even really scale it. Right. That's like that would be a very manageable workload that you laid out, maybe not 7 days a week. So, you know, maybe it's more like 800,000 or $1 million. But if you were to, I don't know if you know Cody Sanchez is great. She's a female business owner. She loves buying companies and specifically contracting companies. But if you have a business that's rendering like 800, you know, $1.5 million,
you sell for 5, right? Or something like that. I think.
If you have a decent profit margin, then that means the business will sell for 3, 4, 5 million.
Right. So I seen something like that where it was like scale a business to $1 million and sell it for 5 because you already did. And there's people that make a living off of just scaling random or, you know, businesses that they know what they're doing, and then they turn around and sell it to, you know, higher ticket investors to continue to run and make higher profit margins off of.
There's a lot of people who have done that in the construction industry. They start one trade and then they'll build it and then sell it and then go to another trade. And then when they're, you know, usually there's a non-compete agreement, and then afterwards they go back and then they start it over again. And they just keep doing that over and over again. So anyway, it was a good path. And, you know, I just love the fact that in your content, you make fun of, like, you're very satirical about the idea of like, dude, don't come to me for the cheapest price because I'm not going to do it, because for me to do it for the cheapest price, it's going to come out like shit. And that's not what I do.
Another thing that I, you know, I talk to a lot of contractors about, it's like, you know, it costs a certain price for stuff to be done right, but I'm not going to be cutthroat with the trade either. Like if I do one job and it comes out correctly, let's say I make 5,000 on it, whatever. I would rather do that one job and work for a couple of days and make that 5,000 than bust my ass for fucking 2 weeks, undercutting what the actual price of everything costs and make the same amount of money. I'm working less, but making the same, but it's, you know, still quality work.
Yeah,
So
you're
that's
going for more at bats with a better
right.
batting
Yeah, I
average
mean,
and swinging for home runs for
yeah, I'm not. I've
2 or 3 week jobs. Now, before I get into the path, we're not talking like you're not doing structural slabs for houses. You're doing more outdoor living, patios, walkways, stuff
right,
like that.
just straight driveways, patios, sidewalks, nothing that requires blueprints at the
Mhm.
moment. I came up in the trade as just strictly a finisher for about
Mhm.
11 years. And then I only started my company because COVID happened and just made a post. Like a lot of us start off, obviously, we don't know if we're going to be able, we don't know what we're getting ourselves into. So I just made a post for some concrete on Facebook Marketplace. I went out there just trying to feed my family, not trying to undercut businesses or take any jobs away, but just
Mhm.
COVID happened. I needed to feed my family, pay rent. So I'm like, hey, I'm doing concrete for, I don't even think I had really, everybody puts like $1 a square foot just to kind of get traffic.
Mhm.
But I was just going out there charging my day's wage, which at the time was like 350, 400. And of course, the very first job I do, the lady's like, oh my gosh, she loves it. She's like, it came out so good. And then she opens her big mouth, right? She's like, you were like $2,000 cheaper than my
Yeah,
other bids.
and you're like,
And
shit, I just left two
yeah,
thousand
so
dollars on
I
the
mean, it
table.
was cool because I was winning. Me and my pops have been. We did that. We went into it together. I didn't really know too much about elevations. Like I could finish concrete like a motherfucker, but I didn't really know much about like elevations and getting water to certain places. So I leaned on him a lot for that knowledge, and we really learned. We learned a lot of it together, and so that's how we kind of started out, and then once we kind of got a little bit, 4 or 5 jobs, we're like, we made a little bit more. Now I'm charging 6 per day, 8 per day, until we kind of found a middle ground. And then once we started doing that and saying fuck going back to work, because we're pouring 1,000 yards in knee deep concrete for commercial. We're like, let's do this. It's only one truck, most of the time, and we're making 3 or 4 times our day's wage. And then I'm like, okay, but let's be legit. You got to be able to show them your license so that way you can do the concrete there.
So you hit on a couple things there, and I'd like to get back because I didn't realize that your father, was involved in any way.
Yeah.
Again, I can't tell you how many people I've had on and companies that I heard started in 2020 when, everybody's back was really against the wall. Right. And I
Right.
believe you're a father of 5.
Yes.
Right. So you got a lot going on. And so take a step back. Did you always grow up in the Inland Empire, Southern California? What was life like for you? Like, how'd you grow up?
So I grew up in West Covina, which is not too far away, but it's more closer, like more towards Los Angeles. I grew up there all the way up until 26. I was in that particular area. But growing up, I did a lot of sports, everything baseball. Well, mainly baseball, a little bit of football, but baseball, travel basketball, like NJB was big back when we were kids. I played against Drew Holiday when he was on the Rancho Bulls.
So just so you know, I'm a Celtics fan. I grew up in Boston.
Yeah. So I played against him.
Thank you for that. Yeah,
we're essentially the same age. So I played against him. So I knew early on I wasn't going to the NBA. We played against them, and I believe we probably got blown out by like 80 points. But I played a lot of basketball growing up, and went to school and everything down there. And I think in the back of my mind, I never really took school too seriously because I always kind of felt like I was gonna probably end up doing concrete. I right after high school, I kind of played a little bit of video games for like a couple years. I wanted to go pro in Call of Duty, but it just wasn't in the cards for me, unfortunately. So
I mean, it's a common thing that you hear about.
Yeah,
kids either want to become influencers or like professional video game people. So
right.
Was it concrete because your father was in it? Is that
you
just knew
so
that
my
it was
father
available?
is in it, and then my grandpa was also. So I'm already the 3rd generation cement mason. My grandpa is 84 years old, and he still is a superintendent doing the lineups for that commercial company that I worked for so long. So it's obviously in our blood and just in the family. So I knew if I didn't really make shit of myself by a certain age, like I knew I was going to get there. And then I also got my then girlfriend at the time pregnant by like 20. So then I made that decision, like as a young man, like, okay, well, I got to put my work boots on now and like go support this child that I'm about to have. And so that's kind of, I went straight into the union. I did that, for 10 years.
So and, was your father and your grandfather in the union?
Yeah. So they're in the union, started working straight away with my dad. It was cool because I didn't have to drive to work.
So when you were in high school, like, what was all your friends like? Like, were they kind of the same way into sports?
Basketball players. Once we got into high school, it was just straight basketball. So I was the one Mexican kid that hung out with all the black guys. And like, it was all fun and games, just straight basketball, hanging out, being kids, going to parties and stuff like that.
I didn't know that you were Mexican until I saw you post the other day a picture of you in a Raiders outfit when you were about like a year old.
It's hard to get.
Yeah, and then it clicked. I was like, oh yeah, he's definitely Southern California Raiders.
Been a Raiders fan my whole life, and unfortunately, we haven't been to the Super Bowl back since I was 10 years old. And that, I went to the game where Tony Saragusa fucking pancaked Rich Gannon, and I think he broke a thumb or a shoulder, and then Bobby Hoyt came in the game, and we were in Oakland for that, and I think they had Marcus Tuiasosopo, and they just got ransacked by the Ravens on their way to the championship. So that those memories stick out to me.
All my friends, my Mexican friends from Southern California, are all Raiders fans. It's in the blood. Yeah. It comes with the blood.
Right.
So, I mean, it sounds like you were, maybe relatively good kid, focused on sports. You just weren't like focused on school. You weren't getting in trouble or anything.
Yeah, no, I didn't have any run-ins with the law. I did have a brief period where I was running around in my car with a paintball gun. But other than that, it was pretty. I never got caught, and I never greatly injured anybody. I never got arrested. So I always kept my head. I never did drugs. Nothing crazy, a little weed here or there, but nothing like I wasn't consumed by it. It wasn't like I waked and baked and did school to do that. I just had more interest in hanging out with friends and talking to girls than like doing my math homework.
Well, it's funny you say that too, because like I've got a lot of people on here that come from, rough backgrounds. You didn't, and you had, sounds like you had strong, leaders in your life from your father and your grandfather, and you knew that an opportunity was there in the industry to fall back on to make a great living. And I think when I talk about, kids growing up in tougher backgrounds, especially in minority communities, like in inner cities that I've been speaking in for a long time, like 10 years, they just don't have that influence. Like they don't know that opportunity is there. They don't have the father or the grandfather that's in the trades to know that at a minimum you can get in the union and live an above average lifestyle. Right. And then when you get into that, it doesn't sound like you're union now, but I even was talking to a young man the other day where it was like, dude, you can go in and get the union education, learn how to do it the right way, and have the option to have the pension and the annuity and everything. But you can also just go start your own business and look at you. I mean, I imagine you're doing pretty well, and we can talk about that. But, to have a fallback plan lead to you, as in a field that people are like, oh yeah, he does construction, he does concrete, to have that as your fallback plan, but to have you probably making more money owning your own business than most people you went to high school with, or that went to college that you hung around with, is just something that I don't think that, people understand. And it shouldn't be a fallback plan for everybody. Yeah. Like it should be the plan.
I think it's important though, because a lot of people get the misconception that, I could just be a contractor and then I can get this guy to do the work. But if you don't know what the hell you're doing, or you don't put the time in to meet the right people, because over those 10 years, obviously I learned how to finish concrete and the do's and don'ts, but the connections with the workers that I make, like all the people that finish my jobs, those are union finishers that finish concrete for multi-million-dollar companies. And, obviously cement finishers are a little bit different because we're a little more freelance. Unfortunately, most companies, even the big ones, they don't pour concrete 5 days a week.
You mean there's a difference between concrete and cement?
Oh, well, cement's the powder, but and concrete is the everything put together, right?
I like to connect the dots for some of the younger people that might not know.
Right? Because
people use those for, and I think you've had a post about this.
Interchangeably,
but they're really not the same thing.
Right.
Right.
Um,
So cement is the mix that you add water to.
yeah, you
That
got to
makes it
put cement with like sand and gravel to
right.
make concrete for sure.
Yeah, and I don't know what the percentages are. I forget. I used to know this at one point in time, but
Depends on
concrete,
right.
it's like 2 parts sand, 1 part cement, 1 part gravel,
Yeah,
or
it
whatever it
depends
is.
what kind of like mix and strength that you're
Right.
going for. But just to go back a little bit, like I never planned on having a company. I knew my grandpa had been for this company for a long time. So when I decided to kind of get into the union, in the back of my mind, I'm like, hey, like my grandpa's old as hell. He's best friends with this guy who owns the company. And they basically started the company together, but the other guy got the paperwork. Like my grandpa had all the connections and all the knowledge, and this guy who started the company was just like a carpenter foreman who got all the paperwork together. And I was thinking, I had like a little plot. I'm like, maybe I go here, I work there for a while, and when the owner is ready to retire, I can kind of step in and help his daughter run this multi-million-dollar company, and that way his family can continue to live the lifestyle and Rancho Santa Margarita. So that's what I was going for. But the guy who owns the company, even though my grandpa gave this guy his life, 50 years, he wasn't having none of that. He didn't want me in there. He didn't want me to have like I tried to get into the office a little bit to kind of see how things were run after I had a couple years in, and he was just very turned off to it, which was a bit of a surprise to me because I wasn't trying to take stuff over. I was just trying to learn and help out. And I thought he'd be more open to that, but I was wrong.
So let's take a step back, because you started off with something that I think it's important people understand. I talk to a lot of young people that are like, oh, I want to be my own business owner. I'm going to start my own contracting business. And they just think that like you get your license, you sign up, and the money starts flowing.
Yeah.
It's very important to get the work experience. And that's why, if I were to suggest a career path for somebody, I would tell them, go in the union, learn how to do it the right way, learn the jargon. There's a lot more professionalism in the union shops, especially coming from the office.
And the safety
the safety is top notch.
Very important.
So you want to learn these things. You want to get accustomed to them. You want that to become your standard. And a lot of the time in the non-union situations, you can find opportunities like that, but it's not the standard across the board. It is for unions, right? That's the one of the great things about unions is that they do have that standard. And then as you get in, you work with different people, you have an opportunity to see a bunch of different types of projects, and you might come to the conclusion when you get a little exposure to what project managers do and estimators do and the office people do and the owners do, that you don't want that headache. There are a ton of people that realize I just want to be a foreman, or I don't even want to be a foreman. I don't even want that headache. I just want to make my good paycheck. I want to get my overtime, and I want to go home and sleep well. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all. That's the thing. Everybody's they've kind of brainwashed into like, hey, you got to be the man, but like you can live a good life, a nice as long as you take care of your money, and you could live a good life just kind of being a foreman, or even the right hand of the foreman. You don't have to go for all of that, because there's a lot that comes with it for sure.
So you were 19, 20 years old, you ended up getting in the union, you're doing concrete work at a company where your status was rising up in whatever crew you were working on to somebody that could take on a little more leadership responsibility, foreman type. You're seeing all different kinds of scope, and you're a third generation, right? So talk about the difference that your grandfather, the type of work that he did at that age compared to your father, compared to, Robert in the 2010s.
Yeah.
as backbreaking. Like if you gave your grandfather the Heimlich maneuver, silica is probably going to come out of his mouth, right? Like a cloud of dust.
I mean, they didn't believe in dust masks, and obviously they also didn't have a lot of the machines. Like once I got in the trade, there was the vibra screeds that are 16 feet long, that even though they're heavy as shit and you might fall in between the rebar grid walking on it, you learn eventually how to handle that and walk with it and stuff like that. But when I first got into the trade, like they put me on the water hose. They babied me a hair. I'll be 100%. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. So like, hey, go fucking get on the water hose and spray the deck for like the first 6 months, so you can kind of learn. And then of course the guys, they wanted to have their fun with me. They're like, Then I put them on the rod stick, and then I'm rodding, and they're fucking with me. They're picking up the stick where it's like falling in, or I'm digging in on the concrete. And they're like, and of course, my dad would he liked to play into that too, and he would tell them that I like to just play video games. So they'll be like, "You're not on the Wii anymore, this fucking, you're really out here." So after a while though, my dad started like, okay, he's giving me like a little bit more responsibility. He's like, these guys work for me, but you're my son, so I expect you to like double, triple check everything and have my back. On he's like, I'm gonna miss some things. I need you to like to pick up on those things and make sure that it comes right. But just technology. Yeah, go ahead.
So it's something important. It comes up on every single episode. Is the hazing at the beginning of your career?
Oh yeah,
it is part of it in the construction industry. If you aren't getting hazed, then people don't like you.
Right? Oh yeah,
you got to let it roll off your back. You got to develop tough skin.
You can't take it personally. Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm sure part of that hazing was, oh, kid, like I didn't have this machine when I was your age. Like I had to do it by hand, and my back, I broke my back when I was your age, and you don't have to do that. That must have been part of it too, right?
I mean, the hazing is part of it. A lot of them, some it depends. Some of the people are cool with you. Some of them, they don't really want you to keep coming to work and rising, because someone that used to be a machine man, if I start getting the shit down, and I'm the boss's son, well, guess what, buddy? You're going back to your sliders to lay shit down, and I'm taking over your machine. Right. So you got to hold your own, but also just not take it too personal, for sure.
Now, what was the pay like when you got in?
When I started as a third period apprentice. My grandpa didn't start me at first. Third period apprentice, I was making around $21 to $22 an hour, I would say, something like that. And that was in 2011. So that was pretty good.
And when you got a full blown journeyman apprenticeship over, what was it?
When I got to journeyman about 3.5 years later, about 3 years later, the journeyman back then was about $33 an hour. And that was in 2014 or so. And now I believe journeymans in 2024 are making like somewhere around 44 to 45.
Yeah, so that's not bad. I mean, $45 an hour is $90,000 a year for concrete,
and there's always overtime.
And there's always overtime. And and to be honest with you, that's not even close to the highest paid trade. Right?
Yeah, electricians always have made more, for sure.
Yeah, right. And so to be making 90 and then plus benefits and the retirement and all that stuff,
so
for
you got
a journeyman
job, and then you got overtime like on Saturdays, because all the concrete that's getting poured, all of these guys that you see doing cash side jobs, it's all Saturdays. So you got 52 Saturdays a year times 300, or if it's your job, obviously you're making more. But like if you're just back then, the going rate was like 300 for the day. So 52 times 300, that's all on the side. If you know the right people, you'll be working 6 days a week, no problem, for sure.
Yeah, and $300, cash for the day. That's that's I don't even know what that is. That's, I guess that would be like $40 an hour.
Yeah.
$40 an hour or so. Now, are the guys, what about the non-union guys now? Are they, I'm sure they make less, but it sounds like you probably have some, guys either that are in the union or used to be union, and that's the wage that they want, right? It can make as much in non-union.
So right now, obviously I'm not union. I just paid my guys cash. I pay the guys that come out for me $350 a day as finishers. And then like my foreman, that he takes care of the pour, he makes sure that everything comes out, legit. Depending on the size of the job, he's at least making $500 a day. Some of the bigger, more challenging jobs that I've ran, I'll give him $600. And then obviously if I'm doing something that's worth a lot more money, then I break them off. Like my dad, obviously my dad's family, but like even for this other guy that I have now, if I were to be blessed enough to get like a $40,000 job and everything comes out and it's all flawless and the customer's happy, I'll pay him his daily wage, but then I might just be like, hey bro, here's like another 1,000 or 1,500 on top of that, just because. And I've always believed that that's just the right way to do business. There's a lot of people even licensed people that take advantage of the immigrants. And they'll, even the guys that don't speak, and I'm not shitting you, the guys that don't fucking speak English, they come out to work for me, bro, and they bust ass, and we get done. Like, regardless, I'm paying them $300. Okay. Even my laborers I'm talking about on a demo job, but if they come out and they kick ass and we get something done in a day that maybe should have took a day and a half or two, I'm going to slide them like an extra $100, and it makes all the difference.
So, you just said, 350, maybe even 400 for the day for somebody who's not a foreman, which would be the equivalent of like $40 an hour cash. And then if you have a foreman or somebody,
$50, yeah.
And then a foreman, 500 to 600 for the day, that's $60 to $70 cash, right? And we're just talking round numbers here. And I don't know college graduates that make that amount of money. I just don't. I mean, you're talking, if you made that every day, especially, we're not even talking about paying taxes on it, but let's just assume, that's just your gross, right? That would be an $80,000 to $120,000 salary per year to do concrete work. You have college graduates coming out making 55 under debt,
and all that money back.
And all the debt that pushes them down towards the poverty line. So, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this.
I think you learn early on if school is for you or not. For me, I would physically fall asleep. Like, I would want to study with all of my heart. I've never been tested for any type of ADHD or anything like that, but I've always really wanted to like study and do good, but I would just simply fall asleep. And so I knew that it wasn't like, I knew I wasn't going to be able to go to college and study like textbooks worth of information and be able to like apply that. So I think it's important to not be forced into college because of family, because they're not living. It's your life. You're going to have to pay that stuff back unless someone's paying it for you. But definitely going into a trade, you'll meet the right people. It's just a matter of time. And if you're a good person, good worker, they'll keep you.
Yeah, it's all about attitude and work ethic. So, a lot of people, there are a lot of people. And again, you're a Mexican American and you work with a lot of immigrants, right? I have so many people in my comments. It's probably the number one comment that I get. It's either about like, oh, AI and robots are going to take over everybody's job, or, specifically Mexicans and illegals. That's why they're being, shipped in. And it's just a lot of negativity around that.
Right.
And
I get that. People are like, they're like, pay Juan more, like just opening their fucking mouth when they don't know shit about what's going on. And I'm like, Juan, the guy commenting, Juan's making more than you working for me. Like, you think you have this weird idea that like, and like I get some people, it just depends on the person. There are those people that are licensed that they make their empire off of these illegals by treating them like, because they're going to work hard for you regardless, right? And some people will pay them a little bit, but some people like me that know what that grind is to demo shit and dumb shit, and I want them, when you pay people good, they're not going to flake on you. That's the number one thing. They're going to show up to work. There's this misconception. I mean, if you go to Home Depot, they don't work for $100 anymore. The minimum is like $220. So they're not really
for the day.
Right. Yeah. I mean, here in California, that's what it is. You might be able to scrape by with 200, but it's not like 75, 150. It's not nothing cheap like that. It's paying good.
So I had a post that I did maybe a year ago. Maybe I'll resurface it, but I basically said to everybody, I'm like, listen, these guys are making more than college graduates are making. They're making more. Like I just said, there's a few, if you become a foreman or somebody that's like highly competent, you could very well be making 100, 120 grand a year. That puts you in the top 17% of earners in the entire country, for Juan or Pablo or whatever, whatever standard, Mexican name that you want to throw, or Spanish name you want to throw in there. And meanwhile, we have all these kids that are buried in debt, and we have 40% of Americans not working. Able-bodied Americans, 40% of them are not working at all.
It's crazy to hear that. Yeah.
And to insinuate that concrete work is only for, Pablo and Juan and all the illegal immigrants, or that they're stealing these jobs. I guarantee you, Robert and all the Lujan elite concretes in the world would hire a black guy, a white guy,
Yeah,
whoever
I've
guy.
given
They just want
chances.
somebody that can do the work.
I've given chances to a lot of people that are U.S. citizens. I don't discriminate, bro. Like if you're persistent in my messages and you're telling me you're trying to work, and I give you that chance, I have, I don't care who you are. You can come out and work with me as long as you show up. I had a kid that, my trailer that I had took a shit, and so there was this kid that was like 21 years old. And he had a trailer. So I'm like, damn, bro, perfect. I'm like, look, I'll pay you 21 years old, bro. I'm paying you $300 a day for you. And I'm giving him $100 a day for his trailer. So he's making $400 a day working with me. And I'm paying, right. And he just has a go-getter mentality, or he did for a little while at first. For about the first four months, he was like, anything you want, boss, and blah, blah, blah. But then, like, as we kind of started to bullshit with him a little bit, he kind of started to lay back. And then he kind of started to take it easy to the point where, like, at first he was doing whatever needed to be done. And that's the number one thing. If you guys are going out to work for somebody, the number one thing is stay busy. Like, don't fucking be standing around. Don't fucking hold the shovel and be like this. Like, constantly be doing something because the bosses notice. And then don't because he's bullshitting with you or being your friend or buying you lunch, don't think like, oh, I don't have to work as hard. Because that's kind of what this guy did. I was paying him way better than he's ever going to get paid from anyone else. And I had a job for him. Like, hey, bro, we had a job and he didn't do it correctly. I had him dig a footing, and like he got a little bit lazy, and at the bottom of the footing he kind of started going at like a 45. So it was like a 12-inch footing at the top, but at the bottom it was 9 inches. The homeowner was like, hey, bro, I need you to come out and fix this. So whatever. I understood it was a little bit of work. I didn't get mad at him. I'm like, hey, bro, I'm going to pay you for a day. I just want you to go back out and kind of just fix what you didn't get. I wasn't pissed, nothing. So he's like, all right, cool, I'm available. So then that same night, he hits me up. He's like, oh, I got to go to see this one lady. She needs me, so I have to cancel tomorrow. And so just completely went back on his word and backed out. So that makes me look bad because now I got to cancel on the homeowner because I'm doing other shit, and he's supposed to be my right-hand guy. It's my fault for trusting somebody that young, but I was trying to give him a chance because he was working hard. He had what I needed, but at the end of the day, he just he ended up flaking on me. So that was unfortunate. I'm like, unfortunately, bro, even though we became friends a little bit in these last 4 months, my reputation that I've been building with my company, I expect at a top level, and I can't be telling people I'm coming the next day and then we don't show up. So for that reason, I'm out. No.
But, he's 21 years old, and for all the young people out there, it's like if your boss shows you a little kindness or shows that he likes you, it's probably a reflection of what you're doing. So don't stop doing it. Like, don't take your foot off. Don't take your foot off the gas, and 100%. Don't take advantage of it. I mean, what you just said is what
life experience. Somebody that young, they're gonna fuck it up. Unfortunately.
What you just said is what I try to tell all people, and it's what I posted yesterday. It's like, if you can't find work, or you're not like getting promoted in your company or getting better opportunities to make more money, you're more than likely the problem, because what you and every other business owner wants is the ability. They would love to pay people more money if it meant that they could focus on other things and not have to pay attention to what you're doing. Trust that it's going to get done right the first time, and not be worried about if you're going to show up, if you're going to follow the details correctly.
GCs, you will pay the contractor's weight in gold if you have the confidence in him to show up and do that job without you having to babysit or double check. And just to go back real quick on like some of the citizens that are a little too ambitious. There was another guy that I allowed after I had got this kid with me. I needed help with like a drain, so I brought another guy out. The very fucking first day, he's gonna tell my worker, hey, bro, we should start our own company. We'll call it the Baldwin Park Boys. And, so bro's first day on the job for me, he's already plotting against my business, trying to take my worker. And my worker told me about it after, and I was like, look, bro, he thinks because some people are good with words. I'm like, so he knows you have a little bit of experience. He's trying to make you do the fucking work for him so he can be behind the scenes not doing shit. So needless to say that guy had one day, and then I shit canned him.
So talk about how you've kept these guys, any guys that work for you. Is it money, opportunity? They like working for you? Like, how do you keep a crew?
I think number one thing is that I never fucking burned nobody financially. I've never not paid anybody. I've never not, the most that I've ever waited to pay somebody is like 2 or 3 days while like a check clears, but I've never had anybody chasing me for money, which is very rare for any type of contractor. Because a lot of times people get the funds and they put them somewhere else and then they don't have what it takes. So just treating your guys good, like I said, buying them lunch because we're making, X amount on a job. Like, bro, of course I can pay $50 so you guys can eat. Because the next I've jumped around freelancing cash. Fucking nobody's buying me a fucking burrito and thanking me for my work. Very, very fucking rarely. And so little things like that, people want to come back and work for you. They're like, hell yeah, this guy's paying me top dollar. He's getting me lunch. He's paying me cash as soon as we finish the last square of broom. And then on top of that, a lot of these guys, I have 5, 6, 7 year relationships working side by side with them. So the respect is there, which is something that you can't buy. Like, if you hire somebody and you try to give input on something or whatever, they're going to be like, well, bro, you weren't in the trenches in the summer on all this shit. Like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Or
I always say that there's 3 things, right? You got to give 2 out of the 3. One is opportunity. And although, they might not have an opportunity to climb up some huge corporate ladder, they do have an opportunity to make a good living. The second thing is compensation. The third thing is appreciation. And they do have those 2 things from me, right? They're getting money. They're getting it quickly. They're getting it on time. And they're getting paid very well, while also you're doing things to show that, you appreciate them. And of course it does help. And
even one of my guys, he makes tools and I'm like helping him sell his tools, because I have like a broader audience, something that like your average contractor doesn't give a fuck about what you going on, what your family has going on. And maybe it's because I'm not a huge, brand, but that's also just like, even as I start to grow a little bit, that's kind of the core values that I like to have, is that I understand that people, they have their own needs and family. And some guy was like, that usually works for me. He's like, oh, my son's graduation. I'm like, hey bro, no, I'm not going to get pissed. I'm like, hey, that's completely fine. I'll move my core around to accommodate you. Versus other people are going to be like, well, what the fuck's more important? Especially older guys, making money or seeing this, and so I'm like, so yeah, just being a human being at the end of the day, for the people.
So when you started the business, it sounded like you were doing side work until it got to a point where you got to basically jump off and do your own thing. Right. You had a bankroll. You didn't have to take out any money or any debt or anything.
I had, fortunately for me, I don't know how, but I fucking always had good credit. And so I didn't have money to get a truck. But because I did work union, I grew a pension over those 10 years. And what I did was I basically wrote a hardship letter to the union office, stating that I needed whatever I had built up in a lump sum, which wasn't a lot, to be honest with you. It was like 15 grand maybe at that time. And I got that money and I just fucking invested in myself, bro. I went and bought the truck, not cash, obviously. I just enough to get a down payment. So I bought a Ram 2500 with that. And then, like I said, I didn't have any, I had one Hyundai Sonata. So I had a Ram and a Sonata, but I had good credit. So then I went and I bought a trailer. And then with my LLC, I bought the Bobcat. And that was all I needed. That was it. Yeah.
And then basically, so that was to get the equipment, just enough equipment to do jobs.
Yeah. Cause you're giving up a lot of money if you're renting Bobcats and you're renting people's dump trailer to go dump stuff that, you're
right.
That's a lot of money and it adds up.
Now for material and maybe even some upfront labor costs for the initial, day or whatever. Are you billing clients up front? Like, hey, half and half, or how are you getting that cash?
Yeah. So, I mean, I always have, the main thing is to have contracts, right? Don't fucking, no matter how nice the client is, you don't take word of mouth. I got burned like that. I was already a licensed contractor, but this lady gave me some spiel of, oh, let's just do cash. And I'll try to run through it real quick. Is she had a driveway apron. She wanted to do cash, begged me. I'm like, all right, cool. So I went and pulled the permit. I confirmed the size of the apron with not only the city inspector, but her husband, We demoed it out, and then when one of the different inspectors came to inspect what we had done, he's like, no, this is wrong, it's not the right size. So I told the lady, hey, you're gonna have to pay, and I wasn't trying to screw her. I just told her, you're gonna have to pay my 2 guys to come back out here and open this, because your husband was there and the inspector was there, and we all agreed to this size together. I can't really afford to be coming out of pocket another fucking $800 just because, it was essentially the city's fuck up is how I looked at it. But she was like, no, you're the contractor and that's not right. So it put me in a bad spot. And obviously, I didn't jump to help her. I was like, oh, I got COVID. I let it chill off for about a week because I was pissed, but I still went over there. We redid it. We poured it. Everything came out good, but she went on to like Angie's List and she badmouthed me with like this fucking paragraph of, I didn't know an old woman could say some of the bad words that she called me. And so, she threatened to go to the license board. I'm like, you're the one that begged me to do this cash. So yeah, I mean, as long as you have a contract, I don't mind charging, which is California state minimum, which is 10% or 1,000, whichever is less. I get that up front. And then, I'll do like a 50% after I set up and then a 50% after we're done. That's how I run the shit.
Yeah. So you minimize anything that's coming out of your pocket. And you already said you're doing short duration jobs anyway. So like the start to finish is pretty quick.
I mean, the max, even when we do like even on the bigger end, like let's say it's a 2,000 square foot like patio extension, which I've done before, I could turn that around in like 3 days, 2 days on the setup, 1 day on the pour. Did
you pay off those loans? Did you get some cash and get loans out there for more trucks and more Bobcats? Or
how did that go? Honestly, I'm a first generation business owner. I don't have nobody holding my hand. I made mistakes. I decided, look, I don't want to pay to be learning anymore. Like I need to hire people that know what the fuck they're doing so I can get results now. So about 2 months ago, I hired an SEO company to essentially their guarantee is that I'll be like the top 2 or 3 listings in 3 major cities within 3 months. So I'm at about the 2-month mark on that. So I haven't started to see the fruits of that labor yet. But just yesterday, I paid for a Google Ads manager. So someone who like kind of helps me out with the landing page, the website, and then he tinkers with the keywords and the distances to be able to get clients for concrete in my specific area. So I'm not scaled I'm not scaled at all. Like I'm I'm still fighting. Like the work that I do is top tier. Like some of the designs that I have on my page, nobody is able to do them on that scale. Like I've seen somebody do a similar design on like a 12 by 15, but to do 1,500 square feet with those crazy joints the way I did in Anaheim, nobody is even thinking about doing that, because it's more than just the finishers. Like the people are like, oh, your guys did a great job, but I did the layout. I'm watching them because these guys are finishing, but you got to tell them what to do. They don't know the design. You got to watch them, make sure they remove some of the joints and 45 some of the joints where it's supposed to go. So I know what I mean to my company and what I mean to the finished product. But yeah, like I know my work is top tier. I'm just not getting in front of the right people. So now I've spent some of the money the most amount of money that I can to make that happen. And I'm just praying, with God's will that it starts to kind of go the way that I need it to.
So you haven't invested in any new equipment or to scale at all? You've invested money in hopefully getting a deeper pipeline. What kind of revenue have you been able to do like from year 1 to now?
Yeah. So like, honestly, I never really for the first 2 years, I just kind of took my bank statements to my tax lady and then she made whatever deductions. And that's like a problem. Like I said, because I never had a business or whatever, I never knew what really I was making. The last 2 years I've been like net for just myself, like about 120,000. But mind you, I'm talking about working maybe 6 days a month. So that's incredibly high amount of return for such little work. which is what I like. It's cool being a contractor because
so when you do scale, or when you do get the
when
volume,
I do
you're
scale,
going to be making a lot of money.
It should be going crazy, but right now I'm at home. I'm watching my boys, which this is time that I'm not complaining about because they're only small like this for so long. But right now I'm in.
So
let
me just stop you right there, because one of the top comments that I get is that in order to make money in the construction industry, particularly in trades that aren't, the electrician or the plumber or the top paying trades, you have to work 6 days a week. You have been able to start your own business, around 30 years old, however old you are. Yeah, and you're making 120 grand while only working a fraction of the month. And you now get to have a significant role in 5 kids' lives that you are the father to, dude. Which is not something that a lot of people can do regardless of whatever career they're in. So this 100%. Notion that, and you're going to be able to provide a great life living in the Inland Empire, making that amount of money, but it's going to get better and better and better and better as you go to 200, 300, 400, which it doesn't sound like it's going to, like, once you start getting the clients and the clients that you want out there, and the investments that you've made into marketing, come to fruition, it's not going to be that far off. It's just a matter of filling up your calendar.
Just the last couple months, I came to the realization, like, it's not that my price is too expensive. It's that I'm selling it to people who can't afford me. And that's where a lot of people, I think, need to kind of connect those dots, is like people in Inland Empire, because they have other options that are way cheaper, and I don't blame them if they want to go that route. They don't really care. But like, if I go to Orange County and Anaheim, my $15 a square foot is essentially what their $5 a square foot is, because those companies over there are so fucking busy and booked. They're charging 20 to 25. And these people are like, oh, you're licensed and you're 15, like, take my money. They don't ask me for a discount. The first thing they ask me is, when can you start? And so that's why I had to kind of be like, okay, it's going to obviously take me an extra 30, 45 minutes to get out there and do these estimates, but I'm closing at an astronomically higher rate in that area. So that's why I'm trying to, like, hopefully buy a house a little closer that way, so I can just, be there in 10, 15 minutes versus, maybe an hour with traffic type of deal.
Yeah, so you want to put yourself where the good clients are, and where it's a little more competitive,
and they understand quality, and they understand that you get what you pay for.
My very good friend's parents live in Santa Ana, in the good part of Santa Ana,
right,
and they got money. They get the money to pay for it.
Yeah, and they got taste. We're not even, and I'm not even going there like, I know you got money, so like I'm just going there charging just like a regular price, because I don't have a shitload of overhead. I don't have 4 or 5 teams and 20 trucks and stuff like that. So I'm just charging a fair price. But what is like fair over here is just like around me is just not what people can afford. So
listen, a fair price is what people are willing to pay. Right. And if you put yourself in a situation, if it's going to cost you 30, 40 minutes both ways, maybe it's an hour and a half of your day, but you get to, for you, charge a higher price, but had a much better margin, which is still lower than the competition. That's just capitalism, baby. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's something that, that's something that, you want to be fishing in the right pond. I say the same thing to people. I say the same people when they're trying to date. Right?
So you can't put it no better than that. Is I was currently fishing at a fucking lake that hadn't been stocked for ages, and over here I'm over there fishing on trout stock day, just just pulling them in, and so it's overcoming that mentality of, a lot of it is mental. You got to be able to be like, all right, this is what's best for me and how I'm going to grow. And you got to get out there. Yeah.
And how do you feel about going? How do you feel about, the sales portion of that? Is it really just that easy that they're just like, you're licensed, you're clean, you've got all your teeth, like, come over here?
Yeah.
How have you learned that?
So it's funny because I haven't so I've been to one like self-development seminar, and that's, I don't know if you're familiar with who Andy Elliott is. He's like was one of the top car salesmen in the world, and he has, he's viral on Instagram for having kind of not insane, but like very strict viewpoints on like being in shape and being presentable. I think looking a little bit.
Is he the dude
Yeah,
who only people with six packs work for him?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
So I went to his thing, bro, and for 2 days, like it was a 2-day seminar Fridays. Oh, it was like we got there Friday. I got hit up like because I went VIP. They're like, oh, we're having a social media thing. If you want, it's just for VIP. And so like my first instinct was like, I'm kind of tired from my flight, but I was like, bro, you fucking flew here to get better, and now you're gonna fucking turn down any little opportunity to maximize on this. So I went there. I learned a lot about, just CapCut, social media, posting regularly. There was a point in the beginning of or end of January up until like March, bro, I was posting 3 reels a day. Like, you know how sick my fucking followers were to see my face every time they opened it? But it was informational shit. It was like how much concrete trucks cost, how much rebar you need on stuff. So it wasn't just like I'm throwing my face. I'm giving you info, but still, I was saturating the fuck out of them. But I came back on fire, bro. And like I said, from January until now, I'm up like a little over 10K on the followers, and that just came from changing my mindset, going there and being like, fuck the haters, fuck everybody who's gonna talk shit about you posting yourself. My own fucking father, bro, was like, you think you're some new fucking guy now because you came back from here? Your own family, bro, will not believe the person that you're trying to become. And I think it's real prevalent in like Mexican households because they get limitations put on them very early on their life. And that shapes like who we are as men. As we grow up, you start to subconsciously like not think of yourself a certain way because other people are treating you like you can't be that guy. Like I grew up. When I started my company, I started with my father. But when I came back from Andy Elliott, bro, after about a month, I fired him. I got rid of him because he didn't like that I would be making content on the job. He's like, go fucking get the string and like do this and that. And I'm like, this is what's gonna get eyes on us and help us grow and like take us to the next level. And you're not supporting this shit, And on top of that, like I needed somebody with me as a foreman to just do what I told them and not give me any, my dad didn't want me to leave the job and go do estimates somewhere else where he had to be working because he's been a foreman since he was 20 years old and now he's 55. And I'm telling him I need him to form this while I go drive around and get us, even though it's more work, he doesn't like that. So that's where I really grew from like, end of February till now is I got rid of him. I put someone in there who's not going to second guess my leadership. And then I'm able to kind of make all the content. I mean, I'm fucking around at work, the Juan Cat versus Bobcat videos, 2 of them, they're over fucking 8 million views each, bro. And
I love that.
Such a simple thing, but like, again, when I came back, I put a little bit of money into how do I catch people's attention? Well, people like competition. If you say this guy versus this, you're going to fucking stick around to see who wins. And then unknowingly to me, I race baited people because so many people are like, Juan can't fucking do that and beat the Bobcat 1,000 times in a row, or now he's going to be sleeping under a tree, or when you leave, he's going to be, drinking.
That was a joke. That was a joke, and it was fucking hilarious.
Masterful.
I want to use that for the advertisement for this episode, and make you a collaborator on it because I thought it was so freaking funny.
The first one I thought was a better quality video. And just real quickly, I just want to, so I could just be accurate with what I'm saying, that the plays on that, like I was just having fun. I wasn't trying to go viral. And that one right now has 6.2 million views. So then I thought to myself, I'm like, well, how can I take it a step up? I said, I'm going to fucking put 2 wheelbarrows instead of 1. So I unfortunately I couldn't fill up both the wheelbarrows without them falling apart. So I kind of half loaded both of them because that's all that it would stay. But then that video, the second one where I had 2 wheelbarrows, which I personally felt like wasn't as good. Well, that one has 7 million views. And so, awesome. It's just crazy because I see so many people selling advice on Instagram about we'll get you 1 million views in 90 days. And I'm like, bro, and I'm so tempted to open up my own show. Like, bro, I'll get you 1 million views in like 3 weeks if you fucking me.
I can tell you there is no rhyme or reason to me whether I could post the same thing on 2 different platforms. One goes off, one gets 100 views. Like TikTok, there's no rhyme or reason.
For me, TikTok doesn't work. TikTok is a like a younger people's place for shaking ass and just other bullshit. The same videos I post on Instagram, I'll post to TikTok, and it doesn't do shit. I have like 5,000 on TikTok, but like the engagement is so different. And even that Bobcat video, I posted it to Facebook the same time I posted it to Instagram, and for like a month and a half, nothing happened. And then one day I woke up and I had like fucking 4,000 engagements on that video now all of a sudden. So exactly, you can't predict it.
I always like to end on a solid piece of advice, and you went somewhere I didn't realize you were going to go. And it's that, again, there's no better industry to get into and have the return on investment of your time, your hard work, your education be so linear, right? Like if you do X, you will get Y. And even when you get in, whatever level you want to take that to, don't let the general public beat you down. Don't let them lie to you and pull wool over your eyes to tell you that construction is for, illegal immigrants and slave driving, and you're never going to make any money and your body's going to kill you and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, to take it a step further, and I've had this in my own life, oftentimes, whatever your goals are, or whatever your vision is for you and where you want to take that, and what that looks like and how you get there, the worst people to listen to are the ones that are right next to you in your own home, or your best friends that you grew up with that are doing nothing with their life, and they're sitting while you're talking about the next step and this next step after that. And you might even hear a phrase. My favorite one is, you forgot where you came from. Or you think you're better than than you actually are, or you think you're better than everybody around you. I can't tell you how many times I've heard those things, but you got to be cognizant of those, and you got to understand that enough negative thoughts will pop into your own mind. You don't need other people putting them in there too. Right. You can't even believe your own thoughts. I don't know if you know who Ed Milet is, but he lives so he's down in Southern California, but he says that there was a study recently that says 80% of all of our thoughts are negative, and 90% of our thoughts are the same thoughts that we had yesterday. So almost all of what we think about is negative, and it's the same thing over and over and over again. So you got to keep your eye on the prize, and the best way to do that and not listen to the negativity or the haters, even if they're in your own house, is to serve a greater purpose. Like, maybe it's providing a better life for the next generation, your 5 kids, or bringing that value to your community, teaching other people that maybe didn't have a good opportunity, in the house that they grew up in, how to build a business, or giving them an opportunity to put food in their table. As long as you have that greater purpose outside of yourself, then it's easy to stay focused and not listen to the haters, right?
Yeah. And my battery's about to die on this, but I would just say, if you guys have anybody, no matter how close they are to you, that are not helping your plan, or they're talking negative about it, you got to sever that and move forward without them. That's the only way. 100%.
Yeah, and it's not even about leaving them behind. It's just about getting yourself, maybe into a better crowd that's more conducive to taking you to the next level. So you shouldn't feel bad about it either.
Yep.
So listen, man, this is over an hour. It is way more than I had you commit to, and I really, really, really appreciate that.
No worries, brother. I'm glad we could finally get it
follow
done.
You. What's your handle for everybody? Where can they find you?
It's at Lujan Elite Concrete.
Yeah, so that's Lujan Elite Concrete. I'm going to tag him on all the posts. Let's end it right now.
All right, brother. Appreciate you. Thank you.